Chapter 9. A Real Idiot. Of course, the first thing that I wanted to do when I got back to America was find Jenny. So I phoned Moses in Boston. "The Broken Eggs group has broken up," he told me. "I don't know what happened to Jenny. I heard that she went to Chicago, but that was 5 years ago." "Do you have a telephone number or anything?" I asked. "It's an old number," he said, "but perhaps she's still there." I phoned the number, and she wasn't. "Jenny Curran?" a man's voice said. "She went to Indianapolis, got a job at the temporary factory." So I went to Indianapolis on the bus. The temporary factory was outside the town. I asked about Jenny at the office, and the woman said, "Yes, she works in here. Why don't you wait at the side of the factory? It's almost lunchtime, and she'll probably come out." So I did. A lot of people came out at lunchtime. Then Jenny came out. She went and sat under a tree on the grass and began eating an apple. I went up behind her and said, "That looks like a nice apple." She didn't look up. She just said, "Forrest, it has to be you." A minute later, I had my arms round her, and we were both crying. People were watching us with strange looks on their faces, but it didn't matter. Jenny and me were together again. "I finish work in 3 hours, Forrest," Jenny said. "Why don't you wait for me in that bar across the street? Then I'll take you to my place." So I waited in the bar. And I got into the wrestling business. How? I'll tell you. It started when I arm wrestled a man in the bar and won some money on a bet. That gave me an idea. But at first, I didn't say anything to Jenny. She came across to the bar after work, and we had a drink and talked. "I saw you on TV when you went up into space, Forrest," she said. And I told her all about that, and about Sue, the ape. "What happened to him?" she asked. "I don't know," I said, "but he was a good friend." Later, we went back to Jenny's flat, and she said, "You can stay here." Next day, when Jenny went to work, I went back to the bar. Several people wanted to try arm wrestling with me again, and I said, okay. None of them won because I was too strong, but plenty of people wanted to try their luck. After about a month, I was winning nearly $200 a week arm wrestling. Then one day, a man called Mike came into the bar. "You can make a lot more money," he told me. "How?" I asked. "Wrestling. Real wrestling," he said. "I can teach you." To make a long story short, he did. Jenny wasn't happy about the wrestling, but I won a lot of money. Sometimes by winning fights, sometimes by losing them, because Mike told me to lose them. Yes, that happens too. But then I did something stupid again. I bet on myself winning a fight after Mike told me to lose it. Jenny got really angry. "It isn't honest," she said. I didn't listen. I bet all my money on myself to win, and then I lost the fight. But there was worse to come. When I got back to the flat, Jenny was gone, and there was a letter waiting for me. It said, "Dear Forrest, you're doing something bad tonight. It isn't honest, and I cannot go on with you like this. I think about having a house and a family and things like that now. I watched you grow up big and strong and good, and then in Boston, I realized that I loved you, and I was the happiest girl in the world. But then there was that girl outside the Hodaddy Club. Then you went up into space, and I lost you for 4 years. And I think you changed. And I think perhaps I changed too. I just want to live in an ordinary way now, so I must go and find it. I am crying while I write this, but please don't try to find me. Goodbye, my dear. Love, Jenny." And for the first time ever, I knew that I was a real idiot. Chapter 10. Money for Playing Games. I decided to go home to Mobile, but the bus stopped at Nashville on the way, and I went into town for a drink and something to eat. I was going past a hotel when I looked in the window and saw some people who were playing chess. Like I said before, Big Sam taught me how to play chess when I was in the jungle. Well, I went into the hotel to watch them, but it was a special chess tournament, and it cost $5 to watch, so I didn't go into the chess room. I was just walking out again when I saw a little old man who was playing chess with himself at a table near the door. I had another hour before I had to catch the bus again, so I went across and watched him. Then I said, "If you make that move, you'll lose your queen." He didn't look up, but after a minute, he said, "Perhaps you're right." It was time for me to get back to the bus station, but when I started to leave, the old man said, "Why don't you sit down and finish this game with me?" "I can't," I said. "I have to catch a bus." So he waved at me with his hand, and I went back to the bus station. But I missed the bus that evening, and there wasn't another one until the next day. So I walked back to the hotel, and there was the little old man, still playing against himself. He looked up and saw me, and told me to sit down. It took me an hour to win that chess game. "Just who are you?" he said after the game. "Forrest Gump," I said. "Where did you learn to play chess?" he asked. "In the jungle," I told him. He looked surprised. "Aren't you in the tournament?" he asked. "No," I told him. "I'm going home, and I'm going to start a shrimp business." "You can make a lot of money from chess," he said. "You're very good." "Am I?" I said. The old man's name was Mr. Tribble. 2 days later, we were on our way to Los Angeles to a big chess tournament. We were a day or two early for the tournament, and Mr. Tribble took me to see some people who were making a film. They make a lot of films in Los Angeles. We were watching a man who was crashing through a window in a film fight when a man walked over to us. "Are you an actor?" he asked me. "Who, me?" I said. "We're here for the chess tournament," said Mr. Tribble. But the other man was looking at me. "You are a big, strong man, aren't you?" he said. "You're just what I need for a film that I'm making. My name is Felder." "He has to play chess in a tournament tomorrow," said Mr. Tribble. "He hasn't got time to be an actor." "It won't take long," said Mr. Felder. So we went with Mr. Felder, and I found myself acting in a film about the jungle with Raquel Welch, the famous film star. "Is that really Raquel Welch?" I asked Mr. Felder. But things did not go well. Somehow, when I was helping Miss Welch to escape from the jungle, her dress came off, and I had to run into the trees to hide her. But who do you think we met there? Sue, the ape. He was in another film. The three of us ran out of there fast, and Miss Welch shouted and screamed. No, things didn't go very well. I wasn't an actor for very long. I think Mr. Tribble was secretly pleased. I was pleased because I was back with Sue again. Back at our hotel, the three of us sat in our room and tried to decide what to do. "It's going to be difficult traveling with an ape," said Mr. Tribble. "He won't be any trouble, Mr. Tribble," I said. But Mr. Tribble seemed worried. Next day was the big chess tournament at the Beverly Hills Hotel. Mr. Tribble and I got there early, and I had to play chess all day. It took me about 7 minutes to win the first game, and half an hour to win the next. I played all that day and the next, and suddenly I was in the final, playing with a Russian, Honest Ivan, the best player in the world. He was a big man with long black hair, and he didn't want to lose. It was a long game. Honest Ivan was good, very good. But just when Honest Ivan seemed to be winning, Sue ran across the room and jumped onto the chess table. Honest Ivan fell off his chair, and everybody started screaming and running everywhere. "Let's get out of here, Forrest!" shouted Mr. Tribble. We got back to the hotel and hurried up to our room. "Forrest," said Mr. Tribble, "you're a wonderful chess player, but I never know what's going to happen next. Here's half of the money that you've won. It's almost $5,000. Take Sue back to Alabama with you and start your shrimp business." He shook my hand and gave me his address. "Write to me sometimes, Forrest. Good luck." Chapter 11. The Shrimp Business. Well, I finally went home to Mobile again. The train got into Mobile Station about 3 o'clock in the morning, and Sue and I got off. We walked into the town and finally found a place to sleep in an empty building. The next morning, I bought some breakfast and got Sue some bananas to eat. Then we went to see Mom. She was pleased to see me. "Oh, Forrest," she said, "you're home at last." "Yes, Mom," I said. But I didn't stay long. 2 days later, Sue and I got the bus to Biola Battery, where Bubba's parents lived, and I explained to Bubba's daddy about the shrimp business that Bubba and I planned to start after we came out of the Army. He listened, and he was very interested. And the next day, he took Sue and me out in his little boat to look for a good place to start the shrimp business. It took almost a month to start things up, to get nets and a boat and everything. Finally, the day came when Sue and I were ready to go shrimping, and by that night, we had hundreds and hundreds of shrimps in our nets. It was the beginning of my shrimp business. We worked hard all that summer, and that autumn and winter, and the next spring. And after a year, Mom was working for me, and Mr. Tribble, and Curtis, my old football friend, and Bubba's daddy. At the end of that year, we had $30,000. Everybody was very happy. But me? I was thinking of Jenny, of course. I wanted to find her again. And one day, I dressed in my best clothes and got the bus to Mobile, and I went to Jenny's mom's house. "Forrest Gump," she said when she saw me. "Come on in." Well, we talked about Mom and the shrimp business and everything. Then I asked about Jenny. "I don't hear from her very often," she said. "I think they live somewhere in North Carolina now." "They?" I said. "Didn't you know?" she said. "Jenny married 2 years ago." Why wasn't I ready for that news? I don't know, but I wasn't. And part of me seemed to die when I heard it. But Jenny only did what she had to do, because I'm an idiot. A lot of people say that they married an idiot, but they don't know what it's like to marry a real one. I cried that night, but it didn't help. "I'm just going to work hard," I told myself. "It's all I can do." And I did. And at the end of that year, we had $75,000. Time went on. I looked in the mirror and saw lines on my face and gray in my hair. The business was doing well, but I asked myself, "What are you doing all this for?" And I knew that I had to get away. Mr. Tribble understood. "Well, why don't you tell everybody that you're taking a long holiday, Forrest?" he said. "The business will be here when you want it again." So I did. Sue came with me, and we went to the bus station. "Where do you want to go?" the woman in the ticket office asked. "I don't know," I said. "Why don't you go to Savannah?" she said. "It's a nice town." "Okay," I said. Chapter 12. Little Forrest. Sue and I got off the bus at Savannah. Then I went and got a cup of coffee and sat outside the bus station. What could I do next? I didn't know. So after I finished my cup of coffee, I took out my harmonica and began to play. I played 2 songs, and a man walked past and threw some money into my empty coffee cup. I played 2 more songs, and soon the cup was half full of money. By the end of the next week, we were getting $10 a day. Then, one afternoon when I was playing to some people in the park, I noticed that a little boy was watching me carefully. Then I looked up and saw a woman who was standing near him. It was Jenny Curran. Her hair was different, and she looked a bit older and a bit tired, but it was her all right. And when I finished playing, she held the little boy's hand and came across. She was smiling. "Oh, Forrest, I knew it was you when I heard that harmonica. Nobody plays the harmonica like you do." "What are you doing here?" I asked her. "We live here now," she said. "Donald works in a business here in Savannah. We came here about 3 years ago." When I stopped playing, the rest of the people walked away. Jenny sat next to me, while the little boy started playing with Sue. "Why are you playing your harmonica in the park?" asked Jenny. "Mom wrote and told me about your shrimp business and how rich you were." "It's a long story," I said. "Is that your little boy?" "Yes," she said. "What do you call him?" "His name is Forrest," she said quietly. Then she went on. "He's half yours. He's your son, Forrest." I looked at the boy, who was still playing with Sue. "My son?" "I knew that a baby was on the way when I left Indianapolis," said Jenny. "But I didn't want to say anything. I don't know why. I was worried that perhaps he would be an idiot," I finished for her. "Yes, but Forrest, he's not an idiot. He's really clever." "Are you sure that he's mine?" I asked. "I'm sure," said Jenny. "He wants to be a football player." I looked at the boy. "Can I see him for a minute or two?" "Of course," said Jenny, and she called to him. "Forrest, I want you to meet another Forrest. He's an old friend of mine." The boy came and sat down. "What a funny animal you've got," he said. "He's an ape," I said. "His name is Sue." "Why is it called Sue if it's a he?" I knew then that I didn't have an idiot for a son. "Your mom tells me that you want to be a football player." "Yes," he said. "Do you know anything about football?" "A bit," I said. "But ask your daddy. He'll know more than me." He put his arms round me for a second, then went off to play with Sue again. Jenny looked at me. "How long have we been friends, Forrest? 30 years? Sometimes it doesn't seem true." She moved nearer and gave me a kiss. Idiots, said Jenny. Who isn't an idiot? Then she got up and held little Forrest's hand, and they walked away. Well, after that, I did a few things. First, I phoned Mr. Tribble and told him to give some of my money from the shrimp business to my mom, and some to Bubba's daddy. Then send the rest to Jenny and little Forrest, I said. That night, I sat up thinking. Perhaps I can put things right with Jenny, I thought, now that I've found her again. But the more I thought about it, the more I finally understood that it was better for the boy to be with Jenny and her husband and not to have an idiot for a father. An idiot? Yes, I'm an idiot. But most of the time, I just try to do the right thing.